Hey everyone, in my last couple of videos, I've been building a mixture of 2D and 3D games using vibe coding. And as I've mentioned several times before, we've been able to do so because of agent skills. Now, the number one thing that everyone has been asking me about is how do I get this on mobile? Today, that's what this video is about. With just these two skills that I have over here, I was able to build this entire Bomberman clone very quickly. This was built with a game engine called Love 2D. And the reason why I really like Love 2D is because you can very easily prototype this and build everything on your computer. And then because we have this Love 2D iOS skill over here as well, you will be able to get this up and running on the simulator right over here. The game works exactly the same. And while I'm on my laptop, I can just use the keyboard to test that the mechanics and everything works well. But then the moment we switch over to the simulator, I'm able to use the virtual joystick. And not only that, I will be showing you that you can get this running on your device as well. And all of this will be happening within Claude Code. You don't even need to open Xcode at all. And the key unlock, once again, are these skills that I've created over here. So this is a workflow that I'm really excited about. Based on my early experiments, this is showing a lot of promise. So this is why I'm sharing this today. And if you ever wanted to vibe code games for your iOS devices, this is the video for you. If you want the exact skills, prompts, and source code from today's tutorial, I've made them completely free as part of my Insiders Club. I also send out weekly emails with tips, workflows, and early access and previews to all the stuff that's coming up. And if you want to go deeper, check out builderpack.ai. It includes my entire vibe coding workflow, configurations, agents, skills, commands, and basically all of the resources and source code from all of my videos that you see on YouTube. There's also a private Discord community where I share some exclusive updates and where other vibe coding builders hang out in order to exchange ideas and to share insights. And soon to come will be 2 additional resources. One of them will be specifically on AI game development, and a second one will be about how to vibe code iOS apps. And so these will be landing soon, and the price will be going up. So if you log in today, you will ultimately get hold of these 2 resources at today's price. Link is in the description below. And without further ado, let's get started with today's video. All right, so just a very quick overview of what we have in this project. So you can see here there are 3 skills, and the main ones that we'll be looking at today are the game dev skill and the iOS skill. All right, and if you're interested to know how I built these 2 skills, I'm using something called Skill Creator Plus. This is a skill that I've been using for building additional new skills. And it's basically an advanced version of Anthropic's Skill Creator. This is something that I've iterated upon as I've created more and more new skills. You don't need this for this tutorial. This is something that I have as part of builderpack.ai. And if you're interested in this, you can check it out in the link in the description below. All right, so the 2 skills we're looking at here are the Love 2D game dev skill and the Love 2D iOS skill. One of them is really just something that I've used to make sure that it knows how to use the latest APIs from Love 2D 11.5. And the other one is everything to do with being able to build and launch this on iOS devices. And it just helps with a bunch of touchscreen controls, making sure that it has all the build dependencies and everything related to that. Okay, so with these 2 skills now, these are the only 2 skills that I'll be using for today's tutorial. All we need to effectively get to where we want to get to today. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is that I want you to create a documentation folder over here. And the reason for this is that we're not going to just from Claude directly like this, because what we want to do is we want to create a game design document. And the game design document serves as a specification so that the AI will build the game in a much better way. Now, there are many different ways that you can go about doing this. You can just go into ChatGPT or Opus or whatever and just ask them to build you a game design document for you. But what I'm going to be doing is that I'll be using an app that I built, and let me just show you how it works over here. Okay, so I just wanted to show you how I'm going to create this game design document for the game that we're building today. So this is called Tiny PRD, and it's a really simple web app that allows you to provide a prompt. And what it'll do is that it'll build you a proper spec that you can use with AI. We've got quite a few people using it now, and I personally have been using it for several of my projects, as you can see here, and it works well for web apps as well as for games. And for the purpose that I'm going to show you now is that we're going to use this for the game that we're going to build. So what you want to do is just click on game mode over here, and then I'm just going to use a very simple prompt saying a simple Bomberman clone, but optimized for an iOS device, simple mechanics, and 5 levels. So the idea here is that you click generate PRD. What it will do now is that it will, behind the scenes, create you a proper spec that will be implementable with AI. So let's just take a look at the end result over here. All right, so you can take a look at what this result is over here. It says Pocket Bomber iOS game design document. And you can see that this is the original prompt that we use. It will perform an assessment of what this GDD looks like. And then it will also provide some refinements if you would like to continue. All right, so this is an example of the generated PRD. So let's just scroll down a little bit here. And you can see just from a very simple prompt, it has now gone ahead and created a full spec that will allow you to implement it in any vibe coding tool, whether it's Cursor, Claude Code, or Codex CLI. This will provide sufficient context and prompt engineering so that it'll be more likely to succeed, especially if you're trying to one-shot and build a game. One of the new features that we have over here is this iterate button, right? And I'm just going to click on iterate over here. And you can see that this brings you into a new workflow that allows you to continue to make changes to this PRD with the help of the AI. So if you look over here, it says this is actually concise and well scoped for a mobile-first single-player game. However, it says that it lacks specifics around edge case behavior, performance, targeting, etc., etc. Based on this analysis, you can go ahead and click on these suggestions to improve the PRD. And this is a new feature that as of last week, and it just helps you to continue to iterate upon this PRD to make it better and better. The problems that I have here is that I forgot to specify that this should be built using Love 2D, which is a 2D game engine. And as I mentioned before, this is a really useful library because you can build it on your desktop and then you can deploy it straight onto your device. What I found is that it's a really useful framework for vibe coding. So what I'm going to do here is we want to build this game with Love 2D, and the latest version of Love 2D is 11.5. So I'm going to say 11.5. Okay, and I'm going to click on the iterate button here. And this new feature is just very useful because you can continue to iterate and then it will get better and better. And the idea is that once you have that final version, you will be able to put it into your vibe coding tool and then continue to build your app or your game, and we'll have much better results. And so here's an example of the revised version of the PRD. And you have a versioning system over here so that you can always go back to the previous PRD if you want to. But here's the updated one, and you can see the assumption is that it's built in Love 2D 11.5 and not HTML canvas. Everything else has been now updated so that it's ready to go into Love 2D as a framework. So now that we have this, we're going to copy this and then put it into our project, and then we'll continue to build this game from here. All right, so now that we've got the PRD, I'm going to create a new file, and I'm just going to call it prd.md. And what I'm going to do now with the generated game design document, I'm going to call it GDD. I'm just going to paste it over here. And so you can see this is the spec that we will be working with. And for today, rather than using Claude Code with Opus 4.5, I'm actually going to be trying Kimi K2.5 as the model of choice today. And you can read all about it, but a lot of people have been having really good results from using it because of its visual intelligence. I thought it would just be a fun way to test this new model within Claude Code since it's just been released. There are many ways you can go about switching your Claude Code to using this model. I think if you just go on to GitHub right now, there's this Claude Code switch, and then there's another one over here that I think a full app. To be honest, there's so many different versions of this, and I just find it easier to just have control over how you do this model. So let me just quickly show you how it's done over here. All right, so the way that you do it is just open up a file within the way that I do it is that I have a file in my .claude folder called settings, and I call it Kimi 2.5.json. And you can see that it's over here. All you need to do is really set the Anthropic base URL, point it to the moonshot.ai's endpoint, and then set your model and fast model to Kimi K2.5, which is the name of the model that's been served over here. And then you just need to generate your API key and pop it right over here. I'll show you very quickly why this company announcement is very useful, because it helps you to not miss the fact that you're using a new model. And so once you have that running, all you have to do is just do Claude, and then you do dash settings, and then pass in the settings file that you have over here. Okay. And you can say that, and here you go. And this will launch for you, and you will be able to see that it's using Moonshot AI's Kimi K2.5 model. The other thing I'm going to do very quickly is turn on my status line. So I'm going to do npx chong-u status line at latest, and then do init. This one is completely open source. It's a tool that I built just so that I have a nice status line that you will see that looks something like this. All I need to do now is just run this command again, and you will see that it's showing you Kimi K2.5 over here as well. Okay, so that's it. All right, so now we are ready to begin for sure. I'm going to say study the gdd.md. All right, and let's let this get going. And while this is running, all you need to do is to install Love 2D over here. All right, you can install it. It's for Windows, for Mac. Obviously, I'm using a Mac, and all you need to do is just download this and install it. All right. And once this has been installed, you can actually just type love and you should see something like this. And you'll see this thing here says no game because you have to pass in the folder that you want this love 2D to run. So this is how it looks like. I know it looks a little bit weird, but you don't have to worry. That's how easy it is to get love working on your system. Okay, so now what we want to do is use the love game dev skill to prepare an implementation technical design document and make sure to account for the fact that it needs to work on mobile devices too. I'm going to say use the Love 2D iOS skill, which I think this is what it's called. And then I'm going to use Whisper now. We want this to work on the computer, so make sure that keyboard keys work. But we want to also add the virtual joystick and buttons so that when it ends up on the device, it will look and play well. Okay, and there we go. All right, so let's get this done. And final thing I'm going to say, write this to docs.gdd.md. Okay. This is not entirely necessary. You probably can get quite far just asking it to go ahead and implement it, or at least do a plan mode based on the GDD. But I find that it's really useful to build a technical design document first, because it will start to look at the game design document and then frame up snippets of code, technical considerations, even before you have a plan for implementation. Because the plan for implementation is going to really focus on the sequence of things and tasks it needs to do in order to get to the final state, whereas the technical design document really focuses on specific aspects of the game that needs a bit more thinking. So this is something that I like to do. You don't have to do it, but if you've worked in game development before, you will know that alongside the game design document is always the technical design document. Okay, so we're going to let this run till the end and then we'll draw back to see where we're at. All right, so we are back now and you can see that the technical design document has been completed. It has covered a lot more design decisions around how to handle input and how everything is going to lay out. And just take a look over here. All right, so it has all of the little code snippets that's needed for the camera, for the state, and everything that would be necessary for us to go ahead and build this. Okay, so now that this is done, I think we are ready to go. And so what we're going to do is that we're going to say, taking the GDD and the TDD into consideration, let us implement this game. Recall it needs to work on computer, but then later on it needs to be deployed on iOS devices. And I'm going to switch this to plan mode to do shift tab. Okay, so you go to plan mode over here, and then we're going to kick this off right now. Okay, and most of the time, you will want to keep very close eye on your context remaining. 67% is still very healthy. You will still have the context of the entire conversation over here. So you can see now it's completed with the plan. So this is fairly new in Claude Code. You can clear the context and bypass the permissions. And like I mentioned before, you want to make sure that you have a healthy amount of context before you begin implementing. Otherwise, you might end up with context rot. But the other thing you can do is just bypass permissions and just let it continue. It should be able to get to the end, but you don't want to risk it. I never use manually approved edits for games like this. But before we go ahead and do it, what I wanted to do is that I want to do Control G. And what this will do is that it will open this up within the .claude.plans folder. So you can actually see the full plan over here. So what I like to do is usually copy this and pop this into a folder so that I can later on keep track of how these plans are doing. And I think this is called Sleepy Herding Garden.md. All right, and then I'm just going to paste the plan over here. And the reason why you want to keep track of these plans is because sometimes you want to use a different model to implement this, right? You can pass this over to GPT 5.2 to implement it, or you can pass it over to Opus 4.5, or you can use some other tool or cursor or whatever to go ahead and implement this plan. So this is actually something that I like to do. So I'm not going to continue right now because what I want to do, okay, so now that we've got this plan saved, what we want to do is safely clear context and bypass permissions, because this will free up plenty of context for the implementation to go through. And you don't really need the context of the previous conversation anymore because you've got the plan right in front of you. All right. So we're just going to let this run and then we'll draw back once this is completed. All right. So we've actually made some really good progress over here. What happened was the game was finished and then there were a couple of small niggling issues, which I then prompted Claude Code to go ahead and fix. So it's now fixing one of the last issues, but let me just show you how you would go around testing this now. Okay, so what you want to do is you can just type love and dot, and then it will show you the game is launched over here. And then when you press play, you will see, there you go. All right. So this looks a little bit different from the one that I had before, but this is a really interesting map. It has a lot nicer animation this time because there's this wobbly effect, that eyes on the character. So let's just try to place a bomb, and you can see what happens is that, oh, I get killed. And there's this little bug here where I had this in my previous version as well. It's like after I place the bomb, I'm unable to leave because there's some kind of clipping. And at least in this case, it has a nice animation. And you can see what's been going on is that it's been testing the game in the background as well. Now, I've been trying to find a good way for it to be able to take screenshots and perform movements as well, but I haven't found a really good solution just yet. Anyway, it says that it's fixed the bomb trapping the player, but it's still happening. So I'm going to say the bomb is still trapping the player. It's a little bit better now, but he's still getting stuck. Fix it. All right, so this is the last thing that we need to fix, and then we will be probably pretty much done with this. So one thing I was talking about just now is that I can just type love and then dot in order to launch this. And for you to be able to do that, and in order for you to do this, you will need to add the love command into your path so that you can just type love directly. Otherwise, it will say command not found. And I'll just quickly show you how this is done. So I just added it into my ZSHRC. You can ask Claude Code to do it for you. So you can see here, I just added the path to this and then added the love to the path. Otherwise, what you could do is you could just type the full path. So you can do this and love, okay? And this will launch the love to the app. And then you would just put the full path and then put dot, okay? This will still work, okay? And let's just see if it's fixed the bug now. Yes, it's working correctly now. Great, okay? But there's a bunch of other small things in this run that it didn't really take into account. For example, the map is like slightly offset, so it's really filling, and it just has this heart on the side, which isn't great. And we'll love to get the joysticks in as well. So let's just go ahead and fix those two issues. All right, I'll say the game is not filling the viewport properly. I prefer for it to fill it so that it looks great on mobile. Add the virtual joystick and buttons as well, and use the iOS skill. All right, so I'm just going to make sure that it uses the correct skill. Yep. All right, and let's just go ahead and fix that. So I think once we fix that, we pretty much have a really good working state because the game is actually pretty fun. Just there's this offset issue, which is a little bit weird, but you can press space bar, it places the bomb there, and now it actually managed to kill it as well. And there are multi different levels as well, and you can see there are different enemies. So I like this version because of the graphics, but it's a lot tougher because you only have one life. So you get different runs and you can get different results based on the different game design documents that you use. That's just something to keep in mind. So what we want to see now is for the virtual joystick controls to come in, and then we'll love to be able to deploy this onto the simulator and then the device. Okay, so you can see the Love 2D skill is loaded and it wants to stretch the viewport. So this is the great thing, right? Because you can very easily just test the changes as it happens on your MacBook very quickly, so you don't have to launch the simulator. And if you encounter any error like this, usually you will be able to figure it out. But otherwise, if that does happen, like I said, you can do Control-C, paste it in the plot, and then throw it into Claude Code, as you see over here. But we'll let this finish up properly so that it's ready to go. And then we'll take stock to see whether we can deploy this onto the mobile device. All right, yeah, okay, it's looking a lot better now. There's still this bar over here. I assume that it should be able to actually fill this. But you know what? That's not a big issue. I think it might be able to work it out now. All right, so that's looking much better. And now we can have space for our virtual controls as well. And the only reason, like I said, it's not showing right now is because it's playing on the desktop. We can force it to show, but I think maybe now is actually a good time for us to simply go ahead and deploy this onto the simulator. Okay, so now this, I'm actually really happy with this. And what we're going to do now, you can see that we're running out of context over here. Okay, all right, so it just wants to do this last hard position. We're running quite close out of context over here. So what I'm going to do very quickly is, all right. Okay, so that looks good. So what I'm going to do very quickly is, all right, so what I'm going to do very quickly is that I'm going to go in and I'm going to do init because the game is more or less done. And I want subsequent runs of the AI to not have to familiarize itself with the code base anymore and instead just look into the claude.md file. Okay, so it says that it's filling the screen. I'm going to do compact so that I have lots of context remaining for my last step, which is deploying it onto an iOS device. Okay, but I'm just going to run this one more time. Just take a look at what the game looks like right now. Okay, so you can see here, it's pretty decent now. It's got nice animations. It's got the bombs working. The levels are working. There are 5 different levels and they're all slightly different. And there are nice little particle effects as well. And like I said, the reason why I like this flow is because It's very quick to vibe code with Love 2D. Everything is just done within the editor. And the last thing you'll be doing is making use of the Love 2D iOS skill to build and run this on Xcode. And it's got all the references for how you want to set up the project and everything that you need to get this working. And I just want to mention again, like this is a really early version of these skills. I've been working on several other new things, including how to get this to work with game assets as well. Just know that this skill as it stands works like this now, and I'm hoping to continue to improve it as we go forward. Okay, so now this compact has completed and the Claude.md has completed. All you have to do is that use the Love 2D iOS skill and deploy this onto the simulator for iOS. All right, and I'm hoping that this will just work off the bat. It did for me when I did this in the previous run for the previous version. And the reason, and what this tutorial doesn't cover fully is that you have had to have installed Xcode and would have had to do some of the initial kind of setup regarding your account and making sure that you have a developer account and all that kind of stuff if you want to get it onto the device as well. So that's quite a long process and probably a little bit too long for this tutorial. But in the future, I will be doing a more step-by-step process. This video was really focused on how Love 2D is a really good game vibe coding tool for games, and less so about how to set up the rest of Xcode. But with these skills, if you got Xcode set up already, this should pretty much work right off the bat. All right, so it says Pocket Bomber is running on the iOS simulator, and here you go. And you can see that the touch controls are working, and this virtual joystick is different from the one that I had from previously because it basically allows you to touch anywhere on the left-hand screen and the virtual joystick will come out, which is a really nice version of the virtual joystick compared to my previous one. I just need to figure out how to actually place the bombs in this game when it's on touch control. Oh, it did work. It seems that you touch anywhere on the right side of the screen, I think. So let's just try that again. All right, so I can move and then let's see. Okay, so it seems that touching the bottom right hand of the screen is where it needs to be. So it needs a button over here in order to be a lot clearer. So I'm going to say that, let's just try it again. Okay, I'm going to say add a clear visual button on mobile to know where to tap to place the bomb. All right, and I think that's pretty much the last thing that we need to do in order to get this fully playable on mobile. Okay, but yeah, hopefully you've been able to see that this is now working. There are little issues that you can continue to iterate to fix regarding the controls, regarding the button, which I'm trying to fix now. So one of the things that you can do is also tell it to not hide the virtual controls while you're playing on desktop, so you can actually get ahead of these issues. What it did was try to be a bit smart by not showing any of the virtual controls while in desktop mode. All right, so you can see the place bomb button is at the bottom right hand corner. It's probably a balance issue, but it's not too big an issue to be able to fix, but the controls are working. And I'm going to say deploy this on my device, CU iPhone 15 Pro Max. So while this is deploying onto my mobile phone, we can just take stock of where we are with this version here. So you can see this, apart from some very final issues regarding the placements of the buttons, this is running on the simulator. This can run on the desktop. So you can see this is the desktop version. This is the simulator version on the left. And this ultimately shows you the flow that I've been talking about as this video. So we did encounter some little niggling bugs, which are really easy to fix. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. And so here you have it. It's working on the device as well. And so I hope you enjoyed today's episode showing you how you can vibe code 2D games on mobile devices using the Love 2D framework. Now, like I mentioned, I'm still experimenting with this, but I felt that I managed to get quite far ahead with this workflow and the skills to be able to share a little bit of snippets of what this entire workflow might actually turn out looking like. So if you enjoyed today's video and found it helpful, give it a like, hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to turn on notifications so that you'll always be the first to know when new content like this drops. And if you haven't checked out my last video of how to vibe code 2D games using the Phaser.js library, you definitely want to check it out over here. All right, till next time, I'll be seeing you.